Hello, it's Marcy Bullock with Understanding Differences Using Social Communication Styles to Achieve Optimal Results. So, this is a webinar you should be doing after you have completed the social style inventory. So, make sure you check with your instructor to complete that, and now you will know your score on the inventory. So, let me define what social style is. First of all, to be an effective communicator on the team, you need to understand your own style and you need to understand and diagnose the information needs of your colleague. Not everyone likes to communicate the same way. And in the work world, you're going to want to understand what your boss's style is. And do they want to communicate by email? Do they like to interact with other people face to face? Do they like interruptions? A lot of this is you observing and learning. Communicate with others in a way that is sensitive and aware of their information needs. So we've all heard of the golden rule, right? To treat other people the way that they want to be treated. Well, I want to walk in and give you a hug in the morning. This is before COVID, obviously. Not everyone wants to do that. So I need to instead employ the platinum rule. That is, treat other people the way they want to be treated. Not everyone wants to walk in and talk about their weekend. So let's look a little bit at your style. It is a measure of two things on this assessment. We're looking at your assertiveness and your responsiveness and the amount of emotion you show. So it's actually three things: assertiveness, responsiveness, and emotion shown. There's no good or bad style. We're going to show you 4 different types. There are only differences, and people all act and communicate a different way. We don't want to use this to label people and put a stamp on their forehead and pigeonhole them, but we want to honor differences and set a table where everyone feels welcome. So if I ask you to clasp your hands right now and ask you to look at which thumb you put on top, I actually put my left thumb on top, but I'm not left-handed. I want you to then shift your hands and put the other thumb on top and tell me right now, how does that feel? The words I typically hear in a live room are awkward, weird, uncomfortable. It's like a magnet to go back the other way. This is nothing anyone taught you to do, but it is coming naturally to you. It is part of who you are. The other way you can do it is you can cross your arms in your lap just like this, and notice if your left or right goes on top. So there's a lot of ways to feel how we're all unique people, and we all approach life a little bit differently. So I like assessments. I like the Strengths Finder. We have another video on that tool. I like the True Colors. We have a video on that one. And all of these, Sparketype, that's another one we have a video, help us put a mirror in front of ourselves and just learn something about us. It's what we say about ourselves. We're filling out the inventory. Also, it helps us understand the differences. Everyone is not going to be like us. And we want to explore a means of using differences to obtain optimum outcomes. That's what we all want. We want to be successful. So what does success mean? Interpersonal success is understanding the differences, the preferences of others, and making appropriate choices when dealing with them. So good, so good. Responding appropriately and thinking about behavior. This is the other thing we're looking at. So the last slide was what leads to success. Now we're looking at our behavior. So it's not really our personality, it's what we say and do. A social style is a pattern of actions that others can observe and agree upon by describing. We can say, ooh, that person behaved this way. We can all agree that we have observed them being very talkative to us, or we can observe them taking control of a situation. Now, personality, on the other hand, and I'm going to show you a piece of pie to illustrate this visually, those are the inner qualities affected by the development of an individual. Their values, their attributes, personal memories, social relationships, habits, and skills. And psychologist Carl Jung would argue personality is inborn and shaped by the environment. You don't act randomly, but you have preferences that come naturally for you. And you could probably see that if you have a sibling. You can realize your siblings are usually not just like you, even though you were raised in the same culture, the same family, you got exposed to a lot of the same education. You kind of came out of the chute with a certain personality. So let's look at it in the pie analogy. Style is the crust of the personality pie. It's the part that can be seen and observed. Personality is maybe the apples in the middle, the inner qualities, the aptitudes, attitudes, dreams, values, and abilities. So to do this in the activity, you can sign your name right now. And when you sign your name, and then I ask you to sign your name using the other hand, you can see the preference that you have. And again, similar words come out. It's very uncomfortable signing it with the hand that doesn't work, and it's second nature and very natural to do it with the hand that does work. So where do we get our preferences for using one hand over the other? How does the environment influence our preference for using one hand over the other? Remember, we can all do both, but one is just more natural and more automatic. It comes from our genetics, it comes from our DNA. So the social style instrument is not a test. There's no right or wrong answer. It is a forced choice assessment. There's no bad or good type. All types have strengths and possible pitfalls and blind spots. So we're going to learn a language to honor our differences. So we have 4 different preferences for our social style. We have our analytical, our driving, our amiable, and our expressive. We have seen our score in all four of these areas. So we can see a primary and secondary, and we can see the least bright or common preference that we have. I like looking at this chart, and we're going to wind up this video by giving you an opportunity to get a definition of the one part of this chart that fits best with you. So if you notice on here, this is more of our ask on that side with the analytical and amiable, and this is more of the tell with the driver and the expressor. This is more controlling up here, and this is more emotional down here. And with each of these, we have a need, we have an orientation, and we have a growth action. That's something that we need to work on. So if you're a driver, you like results, you need them, you have an orientation to doing things and acting, but you could listen more. If you're an analytical, you have that need to be right. Yeah, I see some people nodding. You have the orientation to thinking instead of acting. And your growth action is to declare. For amiable, you need personal security. Your orientation is toward relationships, and your growth area is to initiate. And finally, with expressive, you have the need for personal approval. Your orientation is spontaneity, and your growth action is to check. So let's pause on part 1, and then we're going to move on to a little bit more information on all 4 of these types to learn all about you. Part 2 of social style. So we're going to move on to breaking down all 4 of the types that we just talked about. And we use this whole notion of thinking about our preferences and understanding ourselves and understanding other people that surround us so that we can communicate effectively with them if they don't communicate the same way we do. So analytical people are the thinkers. They tend to be detail-oriented, very methodical and consistent and cautious. Ask what if. They like rules, not surprises. They're careful and proper and thorough. Thoughtful, tentative, avoiding personal involvement, precise, serious, and logical. Some of you can relate well to that. The driver is let's just do it now, get to the point, what is the bottom line, win versus lose, task-oriented, likes to take action, independent and formal, practical, dominating, forceful and direct, challenges others' view, aloof, competitive, impatient. Expressive, colorful and dramatic, future-oriented, optimistic, forgetful, leap before you look, what are the rules, limits, active and spontaneous, reactive and impulsive, decides on intuition, makes presence known, dramatic, animated, adventuresome, direct. Amiable, wants everyone to be happy, avoids hurting feelings, thinks well of others, likes support from others, likes to help others, may hold grudges, approachable, supportive, open with feelings, slow to decide, builds trust, is dependable, open, pliable, and concerned. Now with each of these, you can connect to the words that are you, and you can say maybe negative to the ones that you don't connect to. Intention versus perception. So drivers intend to be independent, decisive, practical, and efficient, but may be perceived as insensitive, dominant, opinionated, and cold. It's important to understand how other people can see you. Analytical intends to be precise, logical, and thorough, serious and systematic, but could be perceived as inflexible, picky, critical, exacting, and stubborn. Everything has an opposing side. The amiable intends to be cooperative, supportive, patient, and loyal, but could be perceived as permissive, conforming, overly sensitive, dependent, and indecisive. And finally, expressive intends to be outgoing and enthusiastic and spontaneous, but could be perceived as unrealistic, distributive, careless, and emotional. I'm sorry, disruptive, careless, and emotional. It's like, what is the word distributive? So with each one of these, there is a flip side. It's kind of like basements and balconies. When you're in the balcony, you're outgoing and enthusiastic. When you slide into the basement, you're disruptive and careless. So it's great for us to see both sides and also for us to understand how to communicate with people of a different type. So with an analytical, we want to try to prepare our facts in advance, be as accurate and stick to business, list pros and cons, take our time and be persistent, follow through if we can, be organized, logical, and be accurate and realistic. And on the flip side, the things that we would avoid would be being disorganized, rushed, and using someone's opinion, not real evidence. Tips for communicating with drivers include being specific and brief, sticking to business, presenting the facts, and after talking business, leave quickly and don't linger. You don't want to ramble and waste their time, leave loopholes, offer unsubstantiated guarantees, or bring emotions into the conversation, which could be hard if you're coming from the amiable side. Tips for communication with amiable is start with the personal comment. Show sincere interest in the person as a human. Ask how questions to draw out their opinions. Provide backup and support. You don't want to just stick to business with an amiable. You don't want to be demanding and manipulative or debate facts and figures or offer too many opinions or be vague and forgetful with deadlines. And then with expressives, our last one, we want to talk about their goals and what they find stimulating, deal with the big picture, not as much the detail, provide ideas and suggestions for implementing necessary actions, and be stimulating and fast moving instead of and avoiding being cold and aloof, putting in too many details, because again, we're big picture, and ignoring their opinion or being too demanding. This is another slide that shows you how to anticipate the behavior of each of the 4 categories. So you can kind of predict that these could be some qualities you would see. May not always be. And it puts it in another format of seeing the person wants to be, and then to strengthen the relationship, what will you do? Finally, use your time to, and to get action, provide. They're very different, aren't they? With each one, the communicator has to understand the best way to get their information across. I'll give you an example. As my boss is a analytical person, and I am an expressive person. So I want to give evidence to my boss. I don't want to come in with testimonials. I've learned that because in my performance reviews, I want to get a positive rating. So I have to understand what they value. Finally, how can we work together? So when delivering information to me, I prefer it to be structured in the following way. Share that with your coworkers and your boss. When I am delivering information, I tend to deliver it in the following way. Explain it to them. In a high stress situation, I tend to, yes, please let me know the strengths of my style and the areas of development for my style. And these are our resources. So now we've gone through another social style instrument that will help you as you are learning about yourself and getting ready for the professional world. Good luck.